birthday, but I looked in the Shabbat calendar.
No, my birthday is next week.
Next week.
What happened was I sponsored this week's the Torah classes.
It's a week of celebration.
Through next Wednesday. So it's a week's worth of celebration.
So we have a week of L'chaim.
Next Wednesday is my birthday, but I sponsored, and what we're doing, because since we don't have, point blank, since we're not having kiddushes and people to sponsor kiddushes as a fundraising or other opportunity for people to do tzedakah, we're asking people to do daily, weekly, whatever sponsoring of the.
Hey, Yasher Koch. When I double check, I look at the calendar every now and then, and I saw that, and I knew the rabbi couldn't be wrong.
I'm gonna have to log out and log back in. I don't know what the problem is.
Rabbis do.
Okay.
I'm impressed with your background. How did you do that? We moved to Palacio.
Home renovations.
Yeah, I heard.
He's been busy.
Hey, Rabbi.
Yes, sir.
When I went on my phone yesterday afternoon, and it showed me you and Hannah doing your show.
Oh.
It was very enjoyable.
Really?
No, I disagreed with most of what you said. But it
You
was,
mean what I said? You agreed with her, you mean?
Oh, Hannah was absolutely right, yeah. I believe that it's very important to put religious observance into your marriage, because I know there's been many times in my marriage with Maureen that I've wanted to do an official sacrifice.
Just to explain to you is that we're working now to work on the next frontier. The next frontier for us is we're taking on television. We're going to take on the Rabbi and Rebbitzin on the television, and we're playing around with it a little bit on the radio. You understand? So we work with social media a little bit just to sort of test the waters. We're testing camera angles. We're testing conversation points. We're testing style. And our goal is to take this to television. Marty, you look intrigued. Are you okay?
You know, Rabbi, there's an old adage that says you should read a book before you write a book. Maybe you're going to need to get a television before you do television.
That is, you know.
What is it going to be? 8,000 pages.
So my point is that I'm taking the 11th century work and modernizing it into a 2020 version.
Nice.
Right. So the goal is to, the day that I was inspired to do this, I opened up a random letter. The Rebbe writes to someone, I think you should write a book. And I think you should write it on the topic of trust, on the doctrine of trust.
There you go.
So I was like, whoa. Okay. Got it. Yes, sir. What was that?
He's talking to you. No question.
Great. It's amazing. Love it. Is anybody on Facebook? Because I think our Facebook is slowly coming together. Okay. I think we're slowly pulling it together, and we are actually live on Facebook and on YouTube, and we're splitting the crowd on Zoom as well. I don't know how great it is, but we may want to consider pushing everything into one platform, but hey, it is what it is for now. Okay, 1 second.
He's still having trouble, it looks like.
Oh, who, Mickey?
Yeah, I'm still having trouble. I gotta switch.
You know what it is, Mickey? You don't have enough bandwidth on your internet at home.
Oh, give me a break.
Yeah, rub it in, Marty.
I have 120 megs down, so I don't have enough.
No, Mickey, I agree with Marty.
No, you know what it is? Mickey has a face for radio.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, that's for sure. But I have 120 down, it's 9 up, so I got enough bandwidth to run the Rabbi's TV show.
Okay, well, at least he heard about it. That's good, right?
All right, I'm switching computers. I'm going to log off and log
Get rid of that cheap computer. Put on an Apple computer.
Yes.
My brother worked for a little while. He is the one who was Rebbe's podiatrist.
Okay.
So you should,
Oh, he's joining us.
yes.
Or Dr. Udell.
Yes.
Cool.
All right.
Thank you for the heads up. That's great. Looking forward. Where is he
Right.
based?
Pardon?
Where is he based?
He's in Hicksville.
Hicksville. Is that a real place?
That's where the hillbillies live.
Hicksville. I thought Hicksville was like a fictitious place.
No, it's a real place.
It's adjacent to Yenhamville.
Oh, okay, fine. No, because I have a friend who lives in Kalamazoo, and I'm like, really? Kalamazoo? That's like a
He likes Rice Krispies. It's about 45 miles east of Manhattan.
Oh, Hicksville. It's in New York. Okay.
On Long Island.
Yeah, Long Island.
Okay. All right, guys. So we are going to get started now.
I'm here.
I see you now.
My wife ran and moved. Let me check my background. Let me do this a little bit.
How do you change backgrounds? I can't seem to do that.
What do you
You
need?
go to, you see where it says more,
Say again?
where it says more at the bottom right-hand corner of Zoom.
Bottom right-hand corner says leave.
No, it's you go
There's
into
more.
settings, and then you click on virtual background.
Right.
Oh,
You
Helen's
go to
with us.
more
Hi,
and
Helen.
virtual background.
I don't see that here at all. There's no setting.
You don't see, do you see three dots?
Yeah, I see 3 dots.
All right, click on there and then
Okay.
go to virtual background. And then you can,
All right, folks, I'm going to get started. Oh, Andy's joining us. I was waiting for you, Andy. Very good. Okay. Andy, it's important to have you with us because Andy is,
Hey, Andy.
Andy, good morning.
Rabbi,
Shalom.
everybody should mute those.
And yeah, okay, I'm going to mute everybody so we can get started. All right. Wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be nice if during a sermon, you know, a rabbi in the bima can just push mute and like nobody's talking? It'd be amazing, right? Imagine you had a button to like wake everybody up and snooze. You know, be like it's like amazing. It's like this godlike feature. Anyways, I want to start off with saying l'chaim to everybody. Good morning. I got a double espresso. I had a very late night, so double espresso here, and I would like to welcome everybody to our Facebook and our YouTube and our Zoom. I see that Facebook is happening. I'm wondering if we're having connection issues on Facebook because it looks like it's a little choppy. I hope that we're okay on Facebook. If you could let me know. And also on Zoom, which is great to see everybody. So today's Torah study, we're going to be learning about the anatomy, the meaning of prayer, of the morning prayer through our series of Judaism at Home. Bearing in mind that by divine providence, Hashem wants us to be turning our homes into holy places as opposed to just our synagogues. That's divine providence. That's what's happening right now, Bashert. And in our series of Judaism at Home that we're learning on Fridays, we spoke 2 weeks ago about the first 20 minutes of the morning ritual. Last week we spoke about food. And today we're going to be talking about davening, about how you can daven at home. You know, a lot of the things about davening that we may not yet know. And today's Torah study is dedicated by our president, by Mickey, in honor of his upcoming birthday on Wednesday. He's turning 75 years old, as well as in honor of his grandson Harrison's graduation from high school, also this week, I believe. But also today is the yahrzeit of our dear mignonaire's mother, Andy Siegelstein, who joined us about 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, in the summertime as he needed a minion. And we connected on a very, very deep and beautiful level. I think it was in the merit of his mother that we connected, if I'm not mistaken. And maybe Andy will correct me if I'm wrong, because his mother sent him to us. What?
Yeah, that's true. It was during that first year that I met up with it.
So it was literally your mother that set up this shidduch. And therefore, it's so appropriate today that we celebrate her yahrzeit. Her name is Maria Siegelstein, and it's Shoshi Miriam Bat Reb Shlomo, right? Who was a survivor of Auschwitz, if I remember correctly. And one thing I know about her is that she loved to say Tehillim. And that's why it was very important to Andy to donate Tehillims to our daily minyan. He bought 10 beautiful transliterated or translated some nice version of Tehillim, which makes it a lot more interesting.
ones that have a translation for each word as you're going along.
Right, and I always find that very meaningful, as everybody says Tehillim after davening, because here's a woman who's loved saying Tehillim, and that legacy continues by all the people that say Tehillim through those psalms that Andy has dedicated in her memory. So I think it's very appropriate to dedicate today's Torah study to her memory as well, and we'll make a memorial at the end of this class as well. All right. So l'chaim to her memory, to her aliyah and Hashem, the elevation of her soul in Gan Eden. L'chaim to you, Mickey, to the length of your days in Gezunt and Parnasa Nachas in this world, and to passing the gavel on to the next generation, to Harrison, should give you tremendous nachas. If anybody would like to dedicate a day of Torah study, a week or a month, you can do so at jewishgardens.com/donate in loving memory of someone, in honor of someone, or an anniversary, a birthday, or a yard site, or any other occasion. That's jewishgardens.com/donate. You can also do it by calling the office at 561-624-2223. I believe that we can welcome Dr. Udell. Is that Dr. Udell from Hicksville? Joining us from Hicksville. That's the Rebbe's podiatrist, the Rebbe's doctor. I want to say what a privilege and an honor it is to have you here. Alyssa's brother, Dr. Udell. Maybe you can share with us. You want to say hello, Dr. Udell? You want to say hi? Yeah, hold on. There you go. Go ahead.
Thank you so much for the welcome. I'm totally honored. I can only stay a little till another 20 minutes because my own shul has a shiur that I committed to that they start at 9 o'clock. So I'm going to more shiurim now than I've ever gone to in years. So Alyssa invited me last night, so I'm here.
Well,
So,
we're delighted and honored to have you. Just to let our millionaires know that Dr. Udell has been featured at least once, more than once, in the Living Torah that we watch on Fridays. He had a personal relationship with the Rebbe, and he's been featured over there. I remember one time when he was on the screen, I took a quick snapshot. I sent it to Alyssa, making sure she knew about it. Anyways, we're honored to have you, Doctor. Thank you for joining us. And again, to our YouTubers and our Facebookers, thank you for joining us. We are going to hit the road right away because we start on time, right? Chabad, we start on time. Good. Okay. So with that, I'm going to just mute everybody. If you'd like to say anything, please just unmute yourself and we'll take it from there. Today we're learning about prayer. Why do we pray? Can you post a one-word answer as to why we pray? I'm curious to know if you could post a one-word answer onto our chat groups on Facebook or YouTube or on YouTube as to why we pray, or on Zoom. Why do we pray? What's the reason that we daven, right? Prayer has actually got two objectives. There's an outer objective and there is an inner objective. The outer objective, the body of prayer, if you will, is the fulfillment of our needs. It's based upon the doctrine of trust that God is the only entity that is in control over our lives. He is the exclusive and he is almighty. We turn to no one else but to God for our needs, and that's why we daven. You know, 3/4 of Judaism is actually based on the doctrine of trust, which we're learning on a regular basis, the gates of trust. So we turn to God because who else is going to provide for our needs? That's the body of prayer. But then there's the soul of prayer, which is about nurturing a meaningful relationship with God, who is omnipotent, omniscient, and infinite. It's very difficult to form a relationship with an abstract God, and therefore we create a platform where we can communicate directly with God. Prayer serves as a bridge, as a medium, where we can actually talk to God, and it's a very beautiful way to connect with God. So there's our needs, our physical needs, which we turn to God for, asking for things. And you should, by the way, ask for your needs. Who else are you going to ask for your needs? And I mean to be very specific. If you have something which is important to you, then you should ask for it. You shouldn't be shy. It's a mitzvah to turn to God for your needs. I've heard from many people that tell me that they don't pray for themselves. They don't ask for their own things. They ask for other people's needs. And I think that's coming from a place of ego, a place of arrogance, where they feel that they can provide for themselves, which is essentially, as we've learned in Tanya, a form of idol worship. If you think that you can provide without the hand of God, then that is an element of idol worship. So you've got to be able to recognize that God is the provider, and that's why you should absolutely ask for all of your needs. Over the teachings of Chabad Hasidic philosophy, you'll notice that it is primarily the inner aspect of prayer, which I see Andy posted onto Zoom, is the inner aspect of prayer to connect to the universal and the eternal. That is the essence of prayer. It's all about forming a very deep and meaningful relationship with Hashem, right? Which goes way, way beyond what maybe Alyssa might have posted here, which is a concept of merely thanking God, which is a little less meaningful, a little less deep, right? To be the opportunity to be able to connect with God as a creation. If you think about it for a moment, for a chess piece, to be able to have a conversation with a chess master is an extraordinary concept, right? So I see Rob wrote, when you pray, you talk to God. When you study Torah, God talks to you, and that actually is very much the essence of prayer, Rob, as you're pointing out, that it really is about the ability and the opportunity to literally talk to God, to have that very personal relationship with God, just like a marriage. You know, when you're married, you need to be able to connect with your wife, with your husband. That's what prayer is. It's the opportunity to have a DMC, which is a deep, meaningful conversation with God. Now, Ed Meyer writes that it's about fear. I'm not sure what you're talking about, fear. Maybe you mean awe. By the way, I see that our Facebook viewership is declining rapidly. Typically, that means that our bandwidth is not carrying the signal. If we do drop your Facebook, then just please jump over to Zoom. Go to jewishgardens.com/Zoom to join the conversation. That's where it's primarily going to be taking place. I see Harvey Barnett is here. Good, but if I think what you meant over there, Ed, is that you admire that you're talking about an awe, to be able to establish an awe, a respect relationship with God, then that's something very powerful as well. Okay, so these 2 points, the inner aspect and the outer aspect of prayer, are not necessarily corresponding to our body and to our soul, where praying for our needs would be something that affects our body, and praying and forming a meaningful emotional connection with God would be something attributed more to our soul. It's not necessarily that those 2 reasons are relating to our, number 1, to our body, and number 2, to our soul. The soul also, there's an overlap here. Our soul also wants its needs fulfilled. Our soul also wants that the physical needs of our lives will be sanctified, will be infused with holiness, right? And on the flip side, the second reason about a meaningful and emotional bond with God is not only our soul that wants a meaningful connection with God, it's also our body that needs to have a spiritual connection with God, which actually is the reason why our soul was sent to this world in the first place. We've been sent to this world. Remember, God made physical out of spiritual. When God created the world, he took nothing and he turned it into something. He took the spiritual and he turned it into physical. And our job is to do the reverse, to take the physical and to turn it into spiritual. Our job is to infuse holiness into everything that we touch. There's actually a great story of a chassid. His name was Reb Gershon Ger Pahar, who had the habit of davening in Yiddish. He would davening in Hebrew, and every word that he would say, he would translate simultaneously into Yiddish. So one time he came across the elder chassid, Reb Peretz Chaim, and he asked him if it was permissible to do this, to daven in 2 languages, Hebrew and Yiddish. So Reb Peretz asked him, why would you want to do this? He says, because my animal soul understands better in Yiddish, right? My animal soul understands better in the vernacular. So what he was saying was that I'm not just trying, what do you mean my animal soul understands? Why does my animal soul need to understand? Because my animal soul is looking to form a connection, a bond, a relationship with God as well. That's the purpose for which my soul was sent down to this world. In our meditation and prayer course, which we're running concurrently as well, we're learning about the meaning of the Shema. And in the Shema it says, you shall love God your God b'chol levavecha, with all your hearts, in the plural. Why does it say with all your hearts in the plural? The reason is because you have two hearts. You're supposed to love God not only with the heart of your godly soul, which is of course, but even with the heart of your animal soul. The goal of davening is to infuse holiness and a meaningful relationship with God, even with our body and with our natural soul. That's what we're saying in the Shema, and that's why even our body, our natural soul, wants to be able to form a relationship with God on the second level. And that's that when we look at the background of prayer, you'll see how this fits in together. The three daily prayers, morning, afternoon, and evening, were founded by the forefathers, by Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Abraham was the one that instituted the morning prayer. Isaac was the one who instituted the afternoon prayer. And Yaakov was the one who instituted the evening prayer. When you look at their stories in Genesis, you see Abraham davened early in the morning, Isaac davened in the afternoon, and Yaakov davened at night, right? So just like the forefathers are our spiritual fathers who inherited to us, we learned in Tanya in chapter 18, they bequeathed to us a connection with God where we have an unbreakable love. We called it in Tanya the natural love. It's a love that we cannot be separated from God. That's a love that we inherited from our forefathers. So too, just like our forefathers were our spiritual forefathers, so too we see there's a spiritual bond in our davening, which caters to the connection of our soul, and then or a spiritual connection with our body and soul to God. And then there's another element of prayer, that another reason for the three daily prayers is because of the daily offerings. The morning daily offering was replaced by the Shacharis, the morning service. The daily afternoon offering was replaced by the afternoon service, and the evening service, Ma'ariv, is in lieu of the sacrifice of the offerings that were placed on the altar during the night from the previous day, right? The leftover offerings that were sacrificed. So we see these animal offerings correspond to the three daily prayers, and here we see a physical component of the daily prayers, because just like the animal offerings we spoke about last Friday, and the purpose of the daily offerings was in order to uplift and sanctify this physical world, to take the animal kingdom and the vegetable kingdom and the inanimate kingdom and to lift them all up to make a meaningful relationship with God. So too, our davening as well has a component which affects our body to sanctify even our physicality, even our body. That's what we're trying to achieve here today. If you have any questions, please post your comments or just unmute yourself if you want to join the conversation and interject. Okay, I'm just going to check quickly if you have anything going on YouTube. Any questions? Again, I see that the Facebook feed. Hi, good morning, Shelly and Stephanie and Harvey on Facebook. I see that there's an unstable connection going on here, but YouTube is a little stronger. Okay, whatever's going on here. Good morning, Susan and Ed and Adrian and Stephanie on YouTube as well. Okay. So I'm gonna keep my focus on Zoom, so I don't have to jump around. If you want to join the conversation, just come straight to jewishgardens.com/Zoom, where we can really focus on the conversation. So today we're going to talk about the details of prayer. We're going to get into this in just a moment. During the pandemic, during quarantine, one would think that what we pray for is the outer element of prayer, is our needs, the things that we need from God. You'd think that would be a little bit more dominant during the times of a pandemic when we're so worried for our well-being. But we can still nurture the connection part of prayer as well. It's important not to neglect that, right? Despite the urgency of the outer need, the outer component of prayer, which is our needs, we still cannot neglect the soul of prayer, the inner component of prayer, which is the connection part, which is what Chabad philosophy is all about. And that's what we're going to be nurturing here today, is how we can nurture an intimate bond with God through prayer. There's a beautiful story the Rebbe tells us. It was on Simchas Torah of 1967. The Rebbe was leading a beautiful Farbrengen before the dancing with the Torahs, and the Rebbe told the story of a letter that he received from Russia, from behind the Iron Curtain. he told a story of a young man who wrote him a letter that was able to finally get out of Russia, this letter. And what was the man asking for? He wasn't asking for a blessing to leave the hell of Soviet Russia. You know, they were banning religion over there. So anybody who was observing religion was persecuted. Instead of asking for freedom, his plea was, what should I do if I can't focus during davening? During prayer, I'm overcome with, I'm flooded with distracting thoughts, right? And that's what was bothering him. And it was with deep emotion that the Rebbe spoke about this story, how this young man who felt that he was unworthy of a blessing of freedom, and of course he was worthy of a blessing of freedom, the Rebbe says, but this man who didn't even occur to him that he should ask for freedom, and he was only concerned about his personal connection with God, about how could he daven like a mensch, like a chassid. That's what the Rebbe spoke about with deep emotion. If this could be true of a Jew behind the Iron Curtain, how much more so of a Jew in Palm Beach? Right, here we are, we're living life is not so terrible over here. How much more so can we seek to strive and yearn to form a deep, meaningful bond, just like you would with your spouse? It wouldn't be very good if you were married to your spouse, but you never had meaningful conversations. So too, if you're married to God, but you never have a meaningful connection, that's not a healthy dynamic, right? So that's something which we definitely need to be nurturing right now, right? And even though today we don't have a minion to be able to daven with, by divine providence, nevertheless, through the proper meditation and the mindfulness, we can actually pull it together. You can make this happen. There's a great story of the son of the Tzemach Tzedek of the third Chabad Rebbe. His name was Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak. He was asked by his father-in-law about how he behaves in prayer. So this Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak answered. He says, "I daven b'tzibur. I daven with a minion." So his father-in-law understood that to mean literally he davens with a minion. But he soon came to realize that the guy wasn't davening with a minion, he was davening on his own. And when he confronted him, he said, "You told me that you daven with a minion. Like, what were you talking about?" He says, "Yeah, my father taught me that davening with a minion means to pull together the 10 attributes of your soul." We've learned in Tanya that we have 3 intellectual and 7 emotional attributes that make up our soul. We have 10 forms of expression called sfirot, 10 sapphires, 10 windows of our soul. And when I daven, I bring all of them together as one. That's what he was referring to. And that's indeed how we can be davening today. You might not have a minion of 10 men, but you certainly can strive to pull yourself together to daven in a state of mindfulness, right? To daven in that kind of a minion. Okay? Now in davening, we actually experience, during a daily davening, we actually experience 8 different mitzvahs. 8 different mitzvahs. Remember, mitzvah means connection, right? The word mitzvah doesn't only mean a commandment, it actually means a connection. So we experience 8 different forms of connection during a daily davening. What are they? So what are they? Obviously, there's the mitzvah of prayer. That is a mitzvah, right? That's pretty easy. Let's say a little Rabbi Eisman. Hi. That's a pretty easy one. But then there's another one, which is, again, if you're having a hard time on Facebook, everybody, you can please join us on Zoom at jewishgardens.com/Zoom. I see that the Facebook link is really struggling to keep up. If you're having a hard time hearing me on your bandwidth, let me know, because I might need to shut off the Facebook feed if it's lowering the quality of the communication here. So what are the 8 mitzvahs of a daily minion, of a daily morning prayer? There's obviously the mitzvah of prayer, which itself is a mitzvah, right? But in addition to that, before we daven, you're supposed to give tzedakah. You're supposed to put some coins in charity. That's the mitzvah number 2. Number 3, there's wearing tefillin. That's a separate mitzvah. It's actually 2 separate mitzvahs, the hand tefillin and the head tefillin. But let's call it as one general one. The 3rd one would be tefillin. The 4th one is the mitzvah of talis. The 5th one is declaring our commitment to Ahavas Yisrael, to loving our fellow like ourselves. That's number 5. Number 6 is reciting the morning Shema. We're going to go through all of these in a moment. Reciting the morning Shema, which is a biblical commandment, number 6. Number 7 is recounting the miracle of the Exodus, which you're supposed to do on a daily basis. And number 8 is remembering an additional 5 items that the Torah tells us to recall. Right? All of these are addressed in our daily davening. Today we're going to cover the parts of Shachris that pertain to these mitzvahs, right? And that's what we're going to be really doing today in the remainder of our conversation. So first of all, when are you supposed to daven? Let's try to make this nice and clear. When are you supposed to daven? Hi, Robin. I see you switch from YouTube. Again, if you're having a hard time, folks, on YouTube or Facebook to hear, then maybe we should just switch everything over to jewishgardens.com/Zoom. That's the Zoom room, and that's where the class is primarily taking place on Fridays, okay? So when are you supposed to daven? First of all, you're supposed to daven as soon as possible after waking up. That's when you're supposed to daven. We did mention last week that you'd rather, it's better to eat in order to daven than it is to daven in order to eat. So whilst you shouldn't have a continental breakfast before davening, but you should have a snack. Like I'm having a cup of coffee, you should have a snack before davening just to calm down your animal soul, to calm down your pangs of hunger so that your body can be calm and you'll be able to focus, to be relaxed in davening. A fundamental part of the morning davening is the Shema. And the Shema itself should be recited during the waking hours. It says you're supposed to say these words when you wake up and when you go to bed. Accordingly, Jewish law states that the time of saying the Shema is in the first 3 hours of the morning, which is generally the time when people wake up. Now, what does the first 3 hours mean? Does that mean 3 hours since you woke up? No. It means 3 hours, three variable hours. Let me tell you how to work them out. If you take sunrise and sunset, so let's say sunrise, for argument's sake, today is 6 a.m. and sunset is at 6 p.m. That would mean you're having 12 hours of daylight. So so an hour would be 60 minutes. The end of 3 hours would be 9 a.m. So by 9 a.m., you would have to recite your Shema Yisrael in order to fulfill the mitzvah of Shema every single day of the year. But a day like today, I think sunrise is at 7 a.m. I think sunset is about 8 p.m. So it's a 13-hour day. So what you need to do then is that you do like this. You take 13 hours of the day and you divide it by 12, which means that every hour, a variable hour, is actually 1 hour and 8 minutes. Right? So 1 hour and 8 minutes times 3 would be 3 and a quarter hours, which would mean that the end of 3 hours, the end of 3 variable hours would be 3 and a quarter hours after sunrise. So if you really want to know what time is, if you really want to know when is the end of the Shema, the daily Shema, you really should know. This is very important information. I actually toy sometimes with publishing it in our annual calendar, putting in a little somewhere saying latest Shema for this month is, latest time for Shema in this month is whatever time, so people at least will be able to fulfill this mitzvah properly.
Rabbi, I had a quick question on that.
Yeah.
Is it the time of when to start it, or when one completes it by that time?
Well, the Shema is not that long, so it's not like it's a 45-minute process. I mean, the Shema, you're supposed to check. I would say completing the Shema. If you just start saying the Shema and it takes you 40 minutes to the point that, in other words, prayer. Let me say it this way: you've got to make sure your Shema is done by the end of the 3rd hour. That's what I'm saying. So, for example, here at Chabad, we daven on a Shabbos morning here at 9:30, I believe, and we say the Shema around 10 o'clock. Most weeks of the year, that is after the 3rd hour of the day. So my kids all know that as we start leaving the house at 9 o'clock in the morning, the moment we leave the house, we all say Shema together. Because we know we need to say the Shema before the end of the 3rd hour, right? So you can incorporate this mitzvah into your life, even if you're davening these days a little later, not at 7:30 in the morning, whenever you're davening, you need to make sure that you're saying the Shema before the end of the 3rd hour. Best practice is just to say the morning blessings right away as soon as you wake up, and immediately after the morning blessings to say the Shema. That's the best practice. If you want to know the times, you can just go to jewishgardens.com/zmanim, Z-M-A-N-I-M. That's jewishgardens.com/zmanim. I'm going to post it in the comments right now. jewishgardens.com/zmanim. And that's where you'll find the times, the halachic times for the latest time for Shema. Just pick your location, pick your date, And you'll find the latest time for Shema. If you want 2086, on March 15th of 2086, I'm sure you can find the latest Shema on our handy Shema time calculator. Okay, good.
Rabbi, is it all 3 paragraphs or just the Shema?
Ideally, it's all 3 paragraphs, Mickey. However, if you can't do them, it's at least say the first paragraph. And if you can't even do that, then at least say the first line of Shema, which means...
I talk, for example, on Shabbos, as you say, we don't just mention when we do Shabbos these days, we don't get to the Shema till probably 10, 15.
So ideally, say the whole 3 paragraphs. If you can't say all 3 paragraphs, say the first paragraph.
Before you come.
If you can't do the first paragraph, then just say the first line of Shema. For example, if you're having a hangover or something from a late night Farbrengen or something, then what you want to do is, and you're like, let's say you're in bed, it's 10 o'clock in the morning, and your wife wakes you up, she says, it's last time for Shema now. You just go like this, you cover the eyes, you say, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, and you've fulfilled your mitzvah, okay? How are you supposed to, sorry, Andy, go ahead.
We actually have like a reference to the Shema, let's call it an abbreviated Shema as part of Birchot HaShachar, right up front. And then we say again the full Shema in later on before the Amidah. So does it count to within this first 3 hours to just say that abbreviated version that's right after the Birchot HaShachar?
That's the reason why it's there, Andy.
Okay.
Now, I do want to tell you guys that I do have a book over here.
Wait a second. So related to that, now we're not supposed to be saying the same bracha twice. You're kind of saying something for nothing.
Which bracha twice? Which bracha are you talking about?
Any bracha. I mean, if you're going to say, I don't know, shehakol on water, and then you say it right after, you basically said God's name for nothing, right? So is this requirement for saying Shema twice a day, let's say the one time in the morning, that you're saying it as part of Birchot HaShachar, and then right away or shortly thereafter, maybe it doesn't even count, it's after the first 3 hours that you're saying the full Shema. Isn't there a conflict there?
Okay, that's a really good question, Andy. That's a really good question. And now I want to make a very important distinction between the fact that you're not allowed to say a blessing twice. You're not allowed to say a blessing in vain. However, you are allowed to read Torah as many times as possible. So when it comes to a blessing on, let's say, wine, if you made a blessing Borei Priya Gafen, you can't make it again and again and again and again, because that would be a blessing in vain. In fact, last night, my son came over to me about midnight, and he said to me he didn't remember if he said a certain blessing, what should he do? I said to him, say it again without Hashem's name. Because you can't say Hashem's name in vain, right? When it comes to a blessing. But when it comes to a Torah verse, and Shema Yisrael is a Torah verse, you can say it as many times as you want. It counts at the very least as the study of Torah. So yes, you can say Shema as many times as you want. The question, which one will count for the mitzvah of the Shema? The biblical mitzvah of saying Shema every morning and every evening. That's what you want to make sure that you're checking in, you're clocking in before the end of the 3rd hour. Okay? But that's a really good question there, okay? And I just posted a link to our comment section where you'll find an online siddur. I highly encourage you to buy your own siddur. You can buy it here from Ashley at the office. But if you don't have your own siddur, I just posted a link online in the chats where you can see what Andy's talking about. That in the morning blessings, if you go to this link and you go to the morning blessings, it's on page. I'll open my own book. You'll see that the morning blessings starts at the beginning of the book, but then on page 16 of the prayer book, you'll notice that there's a first paragraph of Shema right after the morning blessings. It's for this reason, with the understanding that you're probably going to be davening later, because remember, in order to, I don't want to explain to you why. So we put the Shema earlier because we want to make sure that you make the mitzvah of Shema, even though you might be davening later. Now remember, there's 2 parts to davening. There's asking God for our needs, but there's also forming an emotional bond with God, forming a meaningful relationship with God. Remember, davening is not just an empty recital. It's actually a deep and meaningful conversation with God, right? not everybody's ready to do that as soon as they wake up. Sometimes you need to study Hasidus. This is what Chabad does. Chabad is famous for davening late, because we would rather daven late than daven shallow. We'd rather daven late than daven shallow, right? Daven empty. So how do you daven not shallow? You study Hasidus. You learn Tanya before davening. And then after learning Tanya, you meditate upon the Tanya. What that means is you turn your phone off, which is a remarkable way to start to meditate. Works like a charm. And then you close your eyes and you think about what you just learned, and you filter it through your mind. And when you do that, you'll notice that your heart gets excited. It's a natural process. The thinking of the mind inspires the emotions of the heart. And you dwell on that for a little bit. And what happens is your heart, which fulfills the second purpose of davening, the soul of davening, the inner aspect, which is forming a meaningful bond with God, right? And therefore, you say the Shema early at the beginning, because we realize that there's a very high likelihood that you're going to be davening after the time of Shema, okay? So that's an important point to consider. Now, what are you supposed... Yes, Mick. Sorry, what do you say, Mickey?
The Siddur app, the annotated Siddur app for both iPhone and Android.
Good point.
Everything in it, including the when you open it up, has the last hour when you can say Shema.
Right. Let me show it to you here. This is my phone. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a Siddur app right over there. Right? See the Siddur app? And when you open the Siddur app, it tells you, actually, when you open it, it tells you, see, it says Friday, and it says of the latest Shema. Can you read that? It says the latest Shema today is 9:53 a.m. Sunrise is 6:33 a.m. It's great because it tells you exactly what you need to daven for that day. So definitely you should download that. It's just
not only for that day, but for wherever you are. I've done it in Africa. I've done it in Europe.
And it picks up where you are, right?
It adjusts to exactly where you are.
Right. So what you want to do is you want to go to the Play Store, to the Apple Store, the App Store, or the Google Store, and just download. Look up Chabad Siddur. Just look up Chabad Siddur. I think it's like a little charge for like $1.99 or something. $6, but it's worth it. It's worth buying the app. You'll have it with you. I remember, it's funny when these apps pick up where you are. It's interesting. I remember landing in Israel. The last time I landed in Israel at Ben Gurion Airport, my phone said to me, "Welcome to Palestine," with a flag of Palestine. Not the Chabad app didn't do that, but some other app on my phone. I think it was Verizon or something, said, "Welcome to Palestine. Charges will be as follows." Wasn't amused, if you know what I'm saying. But anyways, so let's go a little further in this Torah study dedicated to the memory of Shoshi Miriam Bas Reb Shlomo, right? And to Andy's mother, to Mickey's grandson's graduation, Harrison. He lives up in North Carolina, I think, right? And to Mickey's birthday coming up, to the merit of Mickey's Gesund Parnas Nachas. What are you supposed to wear during davening? You're supposed to wear, the code of Jewish law says, that what you wear during davening is largely determined by what is commonly considered acceptable at highly formal interviews in your culture and your region. What is considered acceptable for highly formal interviews in your area? So in Palm Beach, I think for highly formal interviews, you go without socks and without long pants. I think, is that correct? Keith, you're laughing, but I think that's true, right? Yeah, whatever. So obviously in New York, you'd wear a suit and tie, right? In Florida, I'm not sure exactly what qualifies as highly formal, but you will leave that to your discretion, right? But basically that's how you're supposed to wear, because you remember, you're coming to talk to God. If you were talking to the President of the United States, think about how you would dress. And then you think about, okay, so I'm talking to the King of Kings now. And now I'm talking to the King of Kings. Is it appropriate for me to come, to come in my flip-flops or not? You make that decision, right? Rob, were you going to say something? Rob, were you going to say something?
Rabbi,
Yeah.
Is that custom a local custom?
Yeah, it's a local custom.
Is it different in Palm Beach Gardens than it would be in Miami or different?
Yeah. For example, in Morocco, they probably wear long flowing robes, right? at a formal interview, but in Palm Beach, that would be considered unacceptable. Absolutely, it depends on your local custom. Yeah, whatever, wherever you are. Look, you're going to make that decision as long as you're cognizant of the fact that you're talking to God Almighty, the Master of the universe. You're talking to the CEO himself, herself, right? And you got to make sure that you're dressed appropriately, right?
Well, hang on a second. We also have several incidents in the Torah, including like the time that Abraham was on the mountain and God said, "Take off your shoes because you're on holy ground." So wouldn't you infer from that being barefoot is the right way to be, or that something, a suit and tie and full shoes may not be necessarily.
Look, Andy. Andy, remember what Moses was wearing on Mount Sinai by the burning bush is not mentioned. It's only the shoes that you correctly reference. It is only the shoes that is referenced, and it is interesting. He does tell him to remove his shoes because shoes make us feel comfortable. Removing your shoes makes you feel vulnerable, and that's why on Yom Kippur we don't wear leather shoes. By the way, that's the reason. On Yom Kippur, we don't wear leather shoes because we're feeling vulnerable before God. If you're not wearing shoes, is defined as leather. If it's not leather, then it's just a glorified sock, by the way. But yeah, I mean, there is something to what you're saying, and I'm sure that there's people that daven without shoes. There's that big show. There's that famous show in I think it's Aruba or one of those Caribbean islands with the beach sand for a floor. But that was mainly because they didn't want St. Thomas, but that's because they didn't want the Spanish Inquisition to find their tracks. They didn't want them to see their footprints to be able to identify who came to shul or something, whatever. But in any event, Andy, there is truth to what you're saying, and for some people, and I guess in some cultures, that would be considered very acceptable, like in Japan, right? When you walk into a house, you absolutely do not wear your shoes in a house. It's considered very, very uncouth. Right, so
I'm trying to establish a pattern here for Florida, since we're in Margaritaville here. So
yeah, look. The way the Code of Jewish Law defines it is as a formal meeting with God Almighty, with the Master of the universe. The way we dress, Andy. Think about it a moment. When a policeman is dressed with all of the bulletproof vest and the baton and the radio and the body camera, you feel different to when he comes home and he gets down to his gatkis. Right, and he's walking around the backyard with his flip-flops and his T-shirt. He doesn't feel like a policeman anymore. You dress for success. How you dress on the outside is how you feel on the inside. When you dress formally, you feel like you're talking to something important, somebody important. I remember Larry Ravitz from our shul, when he started coming in, one of the first lessons he learned was that you're supposed to daven with a jacket on. So ever since then, he davens with a jacket on, and he told me he feels like a mensch. He feels like a mensch. He's not coming to chill out in a nice grill room. He's in a men's grill room. He's coming to have a formal meeting with God Almighty. And he says he feels different. It's a mechaya. It's a beautiful thing. So, Andy, take it as you will, but I think you get the context here, right? Good. Okay, so don't forget you are supposed to wear a yarmulke. A yarmulke is not a biblical commandment. Why do we wear a yarmulke? It is a sense of accountability. That's what a yarmulke is. Reminds us that there is something above us that serves as a constant reminder. Remember, this is also the doctrine of trust employed when we remember that God is always watching over us. He's always present in our lives. And that's why we have this thing on our heads to remember that we are always conscious of his presence, right? So the yarmulke means Yerei Malka. It's two words in Aramaic, in awe or in respect of the king. That's the meaning of the word yarmulke. Malka means a king. Yarei means awe or respect. And that's why it's also appropriate to wear a yarmulke during davening. Before we daven, by the way, you're supposed to wash your hands. Did you know this? You're supposed to wash your hands before you daven. We said 2 weeks ago that when you wake up in the morning, you're supposed to wash for impurity, right? We said you take a cup of water and you wash 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right by your bed when you wake up in the morning. We said you do that after the bathroom as well. And last week we said before eating bread, you're supposed to do that as well. Not alternating, but successive. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So before bread, you do 3 and 3. But after you wake up in the morning, you do alternating 6 times. After the bathroom, you do alternating 6 times. And before davening, you're supposed to also do alternating 6 times. That's why we have a washing station inside the shul, because you're not supposed to do a ritual washing in a bathroom. So you come into the shul, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 before you daven. Now, if you're davening very close to the time that you washed your hands in the morning anyways, it's okay. You could just run some water and like rub some water on your hands. But if there's like a separation of time between your washing in the morning and the davening, then you should do the full-blown wash, no blessing. But it is reminiscent of our sanctifying ourselves, like the priests would sanctify themselves before service in the Holy Temple. Remember that the daily davening is in lieu of the offerings in the temple. So just like the priest would sanctify their hands, like Warren would sanctify his hands before offering offerings in the temple. By the way, they did that barefoot. So too, we would also sanctify our hands before we daven in the morning. Okay, and the same thing applies to Mincha and Ma'ariv as well, evening and afternoon services as well. Sorry, Warren, go ahead.
Rabbi, if we're not supposed to wash our hands in the bathroom, why do we have the wash cup in our bathroom in shul?
Because we have it over there. There is a mechitza, by the way, in our bathroom. There is a mechitza between the toilet and the place where the sink. There's that little separation thing. But obviously it's better to do it outside of the bathroom in general. We put it there because, we have it there, right? It's mainly there for the washing of the hands after the bathroom, right? But the washing of the hands for ritual purpose, that you should do outside of the bathroom, okay? So again, but it is considered quasi outside of the bathroom because it has that little mitzvah thing majig, okay? All right, so let's go a little further. Before davening, you're supposed to donate to charity. That's why we have a charity box, because you're supposed to donate to charity before you daven. Why? Because the way of God is measure for measure. When we have mercy on God's creatures, then God has mercy on us. Now, this relates more to the outer aspect of prayer, which is requesting our needs. When I take care of God's responsibilities, then God is obligated, so to speak, to take care of my responsibilities, right? That makes sense, and that's why you should always give charity. You're supposed to, by the way, have a charity box in your home as well. When you daven at home, you're supposed to have a charity box at home. The Rebbe, in fact, spoke about taking a charity box and physically attaching it to the wall of your house, in the kitchen, and in the children's bedrooms at least, so that the very permanent zones of kindness, where the walls themselves are walls of kindness, of tzedakah, of chesed. So literally, you should make that a project, take a charity box and affix it to the wall. If you don't have a charity box at home, you definitely should. Charity boxes are available. You can get them here at the Chabad. Just call the office or come by the office and pick one up, complimentary. It's got a little hole in it to attach it to the wall. Take as many as you need. And you're supposed to give charity every day. It doesn't matter how much you give. It's more important how frequently you give. Every day, you should put some coins in there, and that's what's going to open you up to, as you take care of God's responsibilities, God takes care of yours before. On Shabbos, obviously, you can't give charity on Shabbos because money is muktzah. Muktzah means something which you're not allowed to use or touch on Shabbos. Therefore, before lighting Shabbos candles on Friday afternoon, you actually give a double portion of charity. You give a little extra, one for Friday night and one for Shabbos day, right? Just like the double challah we have in Shabbos, that the Jews in the desert, they received a double portion of manna, one for Friday, one for Shabbos. So too, before Shabbos, you give a double portion of charity. It's actually an interesting story of I think it was the Tzemach Tzedek, who was on the way to Shul, the third Chabad Rebbe, and a poor man stopped him for a solicitation. He said, I'll give it to you after davening. But then he remembered, he went to Shul, he remembered, oi, this poor man needs to go to the market, and by the time I give him charity after davening, he'll have missed out at the market. He dropped his talis at the Shul, he went looking for this guy, gave him the charity, and then he went back to daven, and he explained that when you give to charity to someone else, you actually cause an illumination of your own mind and heart, which relates to the second aspect of davening, which is the connection, the intimacy connection with God. That when you give to charity, you actually are opening up a portal to allow your heart to feel more the feeling, the emotion of davening. Okay. 1 second. So
Rabbi,
yes.
when we daven in the morning, I noticed that various of the daveners will go to the tzedakah box at various times during the davening. Some, I mean, I do it before I start davening. I see other people do it at other times. Is there a particular time you should do it?
So as Jews, a great question. As Jews, we look for every excuse to give charity. So certainly you're supposed to give charity before davening. There's another time in the middle of davening, just before Yishtabach, in a section called Vayevarech David, and I posted the online link to the Siddur, so you'll be able to reference the page number that I'm telling you right now. So the Siddur, the online Siddur is in the comments here. But if you go to page 35 of davening of the Siddur, you'll see at bottom paragraph, the fourth line of the bottom paragraph is like a place where you're supposed to give charity, a second charity, right? When it says in the English, it's the fifth line of the last paragraph on page 35. For all in heaven and on earth is yours. At that line, you're also supposed to give a little extra charity. It's a Kabbalistic concept over there, which because this paragraph relates to the 7 attributes, and that word over there relates to the attribute of Yesod, which is foundation or connection. So when we give to another, when we connect with another, then we are eliciting God's element of connection to draw and connect with God's blessing. So it's a bit more of a Kabbalistic concept to give charity there. But as a general rule, we give charity at any conceivable excuse. It's more important the frequency of your giving than it is the volume of your giving. Obviously, volume is important, but frequency is extremely important when it comes to opening up the heavenly gates for you and for all your physical needs, as well as for your emotional connection with God. Literally, the lights are turned on when you help the needs of others, right? Now, here's something which I love to share with you, and that is mental focus. So we've been trained to daven like lip service, right? You got to say like 400 words per minute, and you know what I mean? It's not exactly a very nice way. Imagine if I was talking to you like that right now. Imagine I called you up and said, "Hey, Keith," you'd be like, "Rabbi, what's up? Slow down, Rabbi." You know what I mean? 1 second, I'm just gonna mute everybody. It's a little noisy here. Okay, so you wouldn't want someone to talk to you like that, so you gotta slow it down. Talk to God like a mensch, right? You're supposed to daven like this. That's why it takes us about an hour to daven in our shul. On a Monday and Thursday, it takes about an hour. And on a regular day, it takes about 45 to 50 minutes. Ron is our daily davening chazan. He davens very meticulously. He starts very much on time at 7:29 or 7:28. And it's not something which takes 10 minutes. It's something which you're supposed to say in a meaningful way at a steady pace, fair. But, Chabad Hasidim were known to daven 3, 4, 5 hours on a regular basis. I don't know if we're holding at that level today, but it's a nice thing if you want to do that, if you have the time for that. But at least you should daven at a respectful style. And the way to do that is by mentally focusing beforehand. It's absolutely necessary to experience something called hisbonenus. Hitbonenut. Lehitbonen means to meditate. You're supposed to meditate before davening. So guys, in shul, when you walk into shul in the morning, of course, we're a lively and vibrant community. So we see each other, we talk, we discuss last night's political debate, we discuss the weather, we talk about yada, yada, yada. But really, the moments before davening are very holy moments. And I encourage you to stop before davening, to put your talis and tefillin on. This is what I do. I come early to shul. And what I do is that I get under my talis and I just put it over my head and I go into a state of meditation. Your mind is fresh. The emails aren't coming in yet. I haven't checked my phone yet. It's too early to check my phone. And I go under my talis and I go into a state of meditation. 5 minutes of focused thinking is going to change your entire day. Never mind your davening. Just focused thinking. And what are you supposed to think about? Think about Tanya. We have so much of Tanya that we've learned together. Right? We're trying to actually upload right now. I've asked Ashley to upload all of our Tanya classes from the very beginning of Tanya onto YouTube. She's working on it, hopefully soon. But all of our Tanya classes are available if you call her, if you email the office. They're not yet on YouTube, but you can find all the Tanya classes. They'll be coming there soon. But she can email you a link with all of the Tanya classes. I think if you go to our website, I think it's jewishgardens.com, just Google Tanya classes or something, you should find them there, but it's not as clear as we want it to be yet. But when you take a chapter of Tanya and you just meditate upon that, you will have everything that you need to illuminate your davening. What does that mean? A chassid once complained to the fifth Chabad Rebbe, the Rebbe Rashab. He said he doesn't know how to meditate. And the Rebbe Rashab told him, here's how you meditate. Think of what you can be. Think about how you should be. And think about how you are. That is meditation, right? Meditation simplified. Think about what you can be. Think about where you are, right? And when you think about what you can be, you realize where you're not. And then you think about that for a few minutes. That right there is already a meditation, okay? It's a very, very beautiful way to start your day with meditation. Just close your eyes, turn your phone off. It's the only way to do it. I love it. I turn my phone off during davening. It's beautiful. The whole world's going to have to stop until I'm finished davening. It's great. And you could just focus. It's beautiful. Just meditate. And that's the reason we have that talus. Sometimes you'll notice people take the talus all the way over in the middle of davening because you just want to be able to focus. You want to be able to meditate. You want to be able to just go into that fortress mentality, which is why you take that talus. And don't get a talus, which is like a scarf, like a token talus. Get a full-blown talus. Buy a Chabad talus. Buy a nice one. If you don't have one yet, you can call the office here. Ashley will help you. 561-624-2223. Get a real talus. It's supposed to cover 3/4 of your back. If it doesn't cover 3/4 of your back, it's not a kosher talus anyways. Get in that thing, put it on, and you'll be able to really experience when you put that talus over your head, you feel like you're in the embrace of God. It's a beautiful experience. Okay, good. So now let's get into the siddur for a few minutes to get a little bit more into the details, right? So we have the siddur link that I posted earlier in the chats over here. And you can also download the Kahas siddur, which Mickey mentioned earlier. Just find it on the Apple Store or the Google Play Store by searching Chabad siddur, right? And indeed, you should have a siddur at home. I know Keith bought a siddur this week. You should have a siddur at home. If you have 3 homes, you should have siddurs in every home. And it's just something that brings blessing to your home to have holy books. And that's how you transform your home into a holy place. But where you daven at home, normally in shul, you're supposed to have a regular place to daven. At home also, you're supposed to have a regular place to daven. If every time that you daven at home is somewhere else, it's going to be distracting to say the least. You're supposed to have a fixed place to daven. What that's going to do is that it's going to help you focus on your own, and it's going to help other people know that you're davening right now. Somehow in my house, let me tell you, we're not suffering from loneliness during quarantine with all the people that are living in my house, right? But somehow, whenever I start davening, someone needs me. I guess someone needs me all the time, but especially when I'm saying like the Shema or something, that's when it's an emergency, right? Like that's when they really need me. But at least if they see me in a certain spot, they know, oh, he's probably davening right now, right? And the kids know Tati's davening when they see me in that spot. But if every time they see me, sometimes in the kitchen, sometimes in the backyard, sometimes in the front yard, sometimes in the dining room, then nobody really knows what's going on. So when you have a fixed place at home where to daven, that other people at least can know not to disturb you. It also helps with your concentration when you're in a routine, right? If every time you got a different view, a different scenery, it could be distracting. Why? Keith lives overlooking the sea, right? So if you live, it might be exciting to daven over the sea, but it's actually not recommended to daven in front of wide open spaces because it becomes distracting. Suddenly a cruise ship goes by, suddenly you see dolphins, suddenly you see whales, suddenly you see people on the beach or fireworks, and it's like davening in front of a movie screen. It's not exactly respectful to the person that you're talking to or to God that you're talking to. The best place to daven is in front of a wall, because that way you're not distracted by anything else. You're able to focus on your thoughts. When you start davening, you're supposed to put on a talus. I'm going to post the way you're supposed to put on the talus in a video. I don't have it with me right now. Let me see if I can post it right now. Let me see if I can share my screen, okay? Hold on a second. I'm going to share my screen here on Zoom, so you'll be able to see. What I'm doing, okay? Okay. Can you see on YouTube, guys? Can you see my screen as I'm typing? I'm just typing in this video I want to show you. Okay. Can you see my screen, folks? Just give me a thumbs up if you can see the screen. Rob, can you see the screen? Good. You can see my screen is loading something?
Yes, we can see it.
Good. Okay, it's loading. Okay, it's a 3-minute video on how to put on a talis, guys. This is the correct way to put on a
The
talis.
talit is the traditional garment Jewish men wear at times of prayer. It's a way of wrapping ourselves in holiness, signaling the special sanctity of the words we're about to say.
To put on a talus, the folded talus is first removed from the talus bag and placed over the right shoulder. The corner strings, known as the tzitzis, should be examined to make sure they are not torn, and during this examination, the introductory prayer should be said.
Baruchi nafshi es Adonai, Adonai Elohai, Godalta me'oid, Hoid v'hodar lavashta, Oite oir kasalma, Noite shomayim kayeria.
You will find this prayer on page 10.
Then
On page
the
10 of
talus
the prayer
is
book.
unraveled and opened wide. The upper edge is kissed, and then the talus is swung around until it is hanging behind you. At this point, we begin the blessing. While saying the blessing, we will place the talus over the head and upper body, and we bear in mind that God commanded us to wrap ourselves in the talus to remind us to perform all his commandments.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvosav v'tzivanu lehisatev b'tzitzis.
So, what were the actions? While concluding the blessing, we take both right corners in the right hand and both left corners in the left hand. The two right corners are raised and placed over the left shoulder, and then the two left corners are raised to the left side of the chest. We remain enwrapped after the blessing for a few seconds and recite the paragraph starting Ma Yakor as in the Siddur.
Again, page 10.
Mayokor chastecha Elohim uvenei Adam b'tzeil kunafecha yechesoyun. Yirviyun mideshen beisecha v'nachal adonecha sashkeim. Ki imecha mekoir chayim be'oirecha nire oir meshoich chastecha leyodeecha v'tzidkoscha leyishrei leiv.
Then, the sides of the talus are pulled up so it is draped over each of our shoulders, and we're ready to go.
Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing screen. Any questions on that talus presentation? Any questions, folks? I want to make sure we all got this clear. Hey, Adrian, how you doing, man? Oh boy, hold on. Something's happening here. Okay, sorry about that. Can everybody see me? Do you have any questions? Did you learn anything about that video presentation? Was it something you didn't know about that talus? Trying to make sure that we're doing it properly, right? There's actually, the reason that we go like this is because you're supposed to, the blessing that we make is to wrap ourselves in a talus. It's an interesting discussion in the Talmud as to what is defined as the wrapping in the talus. It's not the wearing, it's the wrapping. And you got to do it in the way of the Arabs, basically, the way of the Ishmaelites. And you got to do it left arm over here, right arm over, and you say that blessing. All of that is found on page 10 in the prayer book, which was posted to the group earlier. I gave you the chat group before. And also, I want to make sure that you have this video. I'm posting it right now to the comments. I see I chatted it only to Keith, but I'm sending it to everybody right now. The video is posted in case you want to review that video in your own time. So what I did today, guys, is I slowed this down. I wanted to slow down this class. I'm not interested in covering at a high speed. I'd rather have more of a paced discussion. So I think I'm going to stop just around here with one more comment. I did mention to you that we're wearing tzitzis as well. You know that tzitzis is the undergarment. I think I mentioned this the other day. We have tzitzis that we wear. It's a miniature talus. And that's to the talus, which is the large tzitzis, right? I think I mentioned how it teaches you about the 613 commandments. The reason is because the word tzitzis, which is the name of the fringes, the tassels in the Torah, is the numerical value of 600. And there's 5 knots and 8 strings on each corner. So 600 plus 5 plus 8 equals 613. That is how we get to what it says in the Shema, that when you see the tzitzis, it will remind you of all the commandments of God. It says that in the Shema, in the final paragraph. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the children of Israel and tell them to make for themselves fringes on the corners of their garments throughout their generations, and to attach a thread of blue on the fringe of each corner. They shall be to you as tzitzis, and you shall look upon them and remember all the commandments of the Lord and fulfill them. How is it that looking at the tzitzis reminds you about all the commandments? When you put that tzitzis on, when you're putting on your talus, you think about the 613, the numerical value of tzitzis and the 5 knots and the 8 strings, and you think about the 613. By the way, when you put your talus on in the morning, you put it over your shoulder, and when you say that preamble on page 10 in the Siddur, you're supposed to actually separate each unique strand. It's like a bit of a meditative experience as you separate each strand, making sure there's no knots and no tangles in there. So that's something which prepares you also for prayer. And with that, friends, I think I'm going to finish over here today. Do we have any questions before we do the memorial prayer for Andy's mother? Any questions, friends, before we call it a day? Let me check on Facebook if we have any comments coming in here.
Yes, Rabbi.
Yeah.
Why the blue thread? I thought the blue relates to. I thought it came from like a snail or something like that in ancient times. So.
Yeah, the blue thread. Okay, the blue thread is like this. It comes from a creature called the chilazon, which means like a snail. It's a creature that comes out of the ocean once every 70 years. I did a research project with my son, and we pretty much think that we found out what creature that is. I forget what it was, but if I ask Sholem in the other room, he'll probably remember because he knows everything about animals. But basically, it's a creature. We're not 100% sure what it is today, but its blood makes a dye, a blue dye. And now today we have synthetic colors, but in ancient times, colored clothing was considered very expensive. It was like your Maserati. If you could wear colored clothing, it was like driving a Maserati. So when God tells us to take the dye of this fish, whatever, this sea creature, which comes out of the ocean once every 70 years, and put it in one thread of our tzitzis, it was like an interesting upgrade, you know? And today, since we don't know for sure which one it is, we therefore don't put it on. You will see some Jews, especially in Israel, walking around with blue threads through their talus because they believe that they know which one it is. Good for them, right? But I don't know which one it is. The vast majority of people don't know what it is, so we don't know for sure. And therefore, we just, when in doubt, do without. So we just don't have it until Mashiach comes and he tells us exactly which one it is. But that should answer your question, Ronnie, right? Good. So with this, friends, I'm going to now conclude with a memorial prayer. I'm going to say an interesting prayer, which is actually a form of Kaddish. It's in lieu of Kaddish, okay? It's a prayer that if you have the Siddur in front of you, you can open it up to page 224. 224, we actually say it on Shabbos, just after we take out the Torah from the Ark. It's very similar to the Kaddish. I'm just going to read it in memory of Shoshi Miriam Bas Shlomo, Master of Shlomo, right? Andy's mom, okay? Ala kol yisgadol v'yiskadesh v'yishtabach v'yispoyer v'yisreimen v'yisnaseh shmoi shemelech melech hamlochem HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'olam shebara olam hazeh v'olam haba kirtzein v'chirtzein yireya v'chirtzein kol amcha beis Yisrael tzura olam emaden kol abriyos eliyach kol hanefoshes hayeshev b'merchavei morim hasheichen mishmei shmei kadem k'dushos el hachayis v'k'dushos el kisi hakavit uv'chein yiskadesh sheshim chabanu aran eleheinu le'enei kol choy v'neimer lefonav shir chodesh chakotov shiro lelihim zamru shmoi sil el reiche baravis b'yashmei v'ilu zelefonav v'nireyu ayin b'ayin b'shuv el Naveo Kakosov ki ein bein yiru shuvar in tzien v'nemar v'nigluk v'dan in Brochel Basar Yachtov ki piad in deeper. By the name of the Supreme King of Kings, the Holy One, blessed be He, be magnified and hallowed, praised and glorified, exalted and extolled above all in the world to which He has created, this world and the world to come, in accordance with His desire, the desire of those who fear Him, and the desire of your entire people, the house of Israel. Rock of the world, master of all the created beings, God of all souls, who is enthroned in the heavenly expanse, who abides in the primeval most supernal heavens. His holiness is upon the Chayot, and His holiness is upon the throne of glory. And so may your name, Lord our God, be sanctified within us in the sight of all living beings, and we shall sing a new song before Him, as it is written, sing to God, chant praises to His name, exalt Him who dwells in the heavens, praise His name with awe and exalt before Him, and we shall see Him eye to eye when He returns to His abode, as it is written, for they shall see eye to eye when the Lord returns to Zion, and it is said, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and together all flesh shall see that the mouth of the Lord has spoken. I'm going to conclude with the memorial prayer on page 466 in the prayer book. Shoshi Miriam Bas Reb Shlomo Shelcha Liolama Bavur Shebli Neder Yitnu Letzedaka B'adas Koras Nishmosa Beganei Tentei Menuchasa Lachain Baramin Astereya B'Seisar Knabila V'Yitzrar V'Yitzrar Chaim Es Nishmos Adina Yuna Chalosa V'Sanuch B'Shalom Al Mishkava V'Neimar Amen. May your mother's soul have an aliyah in Gan Eden. Andy, thank you for dedicating today's Torah study in the elevation of her soul. Anybody would like to dedicate a day of Torah study for your side, a birthday, an anniversary, or any other occasion, please do so at jewishgardens.com/donate, or call the office at 561-624-2223. Please join us for the Farbrengen before Shabbos today at 7 o'clock. We'll be having a cantorial component as well by Label and the boys, and we'll be having a Farbrengen on positivity bias a little later. That's tonight on Zoom at 7 p.m. And we hope to see you all there. With that, I want to say over and out. Shabbat Shalom. Any closing comments from anybody here? Any comments before we close it out? And do you want to say anything about your mom?
We're good. Thank you.
Anybody else? Any questions, comments? We're good?
Yasher Koch.
Yalla, everybody. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day. Thank you. Take care. Over and out. And for the back of the bus, we say shalom. There we go. Now we're good. And to our YouTubers, thank you, Graciela and Ashley and Susan. Good to see you all. Thank you, Susan. I hope that it was clear here on YouTube, because I think Facebook was crashed. I'm pretty sure Facebook crashed along the way here. I don't know if we can handle all three platforms of Zoom and Facebook and YouTube. In any event, we made it. And thank you very much. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Hope to see you tonight at 7 o'clock. Shalom.